Greetings, hello, good day, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining True Hope Cast, the official True Hope Canada podcast. My name is Simon. I have the pleasure of being your host. True Hope Canada is a mind and body based supplement company that is dedicated first and foremost to promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. Now more than ever, people are looking for ways to support their brain health, and this is a huge part of what we're doing here at True Hope Canada. For more information, you can visit truehopecanada.com, and you can find us on all the usual social media sites. Just search True Hope Canada. We have a very special guest with us today, the Vice President of Operations of True Hope Canada, Mr. David Stephan. Over the past 18 years, David has worked extensively within the research process of True Hope. He has a passion for providing individuals with drug-free solutions to overcoming mental illness. During his time at True Hope, he has been involved in leading-edge discoveries that are astounding researchers and empowering humanity to live happier and to live more meaningful lives. As such, David feels it is his privilege and duty to share the knowledge that not only has changed his life personally, but has allowed for over 100,000 other people to transform their lives as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, David. First question, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Simon. Thank you so much for bringing me on, and I'm really looking forward to a great discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, pleasure to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you, yourself, and kind of your journey into, let's call it the health and wellness field?
Well, it really began when I was in my childhood. Just kind of grew up with it. My father was one of the co-founders of True Hope, and came across his discovery of nutrition having a significant impact in completely correcting mental health conditions. And as one of many siblings who suffered with those mental health conditions, I was a benefactor of that. And so from my early teenage years, I've been taking different nutrient supplements and all that for my own well-being, to ensure that I can be who I need to be for my wife, my children, be a better brother, better son, and just a better individual overall.
Amazing. So from a young age, you've had that exposure to the power of natural medicine towards mental illness and basically just feeling better.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, the True Hope EMP Power Plus story is without doubt remarkable. I've had the pleasure of hearing it from many different people. So can you kind of take us back a little bit? Let's kind of start from the beginning to give people a picture of what we know now as a life-saving product and a life-saving company for so many people.
Absolutely. The story really began actually before I was born. My grandfather, that I never had the opportunity to meet, ended up taking his life 5 years before I was born. And that was on my mother's side of the family. My mother inherited the same disorder that her father had. And after 10 years of suffering with bipolar disorder with rapid cycling, in January of 1994, she went to the doctor to receive help after going through an intensely stressful situation that was a result of different government interventions finding their way into our lives. And so she went to the doctor to get help to deal with the stressful situation and deal with the depression that she was suffering from. And she ended up with a prescription for Prozac. 2 weeks later, she ended up taking her own life. And it wouldn't be for another decade after that point in time that we discovered the hidden evidence behind Prozac and other SSRI medications, and how they actually significantly increase the risk of suicide in many of the individuals that take them. And unfortunately, she became a statistic in January of 1994 when she got onto that medication and left behind 9 children who all were suffering in one way or another with the same mental health conditions that had plagued herself, some of her siblings, as well as her father, that led to his death. And so that's really the beginnings of it. And our family was just left in an absolutely devastated place. And like most people, some of my siblings ended up getting on medications because of the severity of the symptoms of their illnesses. And my father, as a loving father, not wanting to watch the rest of his family just fall apart in front of his eyes, exhausted every avenue that was available to him within the pharmaceutical regimen. He consulted with specialists, psychiatrists, and there was no hope given to our family. It was just one medication after the next, without actually seeing the quality of life increase. At best, like my older sister was left sedated. She had a 3-year-old son and had to be on 24-hour supervision because she thought that it was appropriate to obsess about ways to kill herself and her 3-year-old son. And then when she wasn't on 24-hour supervision, she was in the psych ward. And so, my father was just watching this take place before his eyes and refused to allow that to be the final answer, that this is as good as it gets, and that, this is what you have to suffer with for the rest of your life, as short as it may be. So
Wow. So that's the okay. So obviously, this story starts with it's quite significant tragedy, and obviously, the family, the very large family that you're living in, is experiencing death, and your father overseeing and seeing this all. When he kind of decides that he doesn't want the rest of the family to kind of go through a similar fate as his wife did, um, what does he start by consulting the conventional medical system, like again, like as they've experienced in the past, or where does the story kind of go from there? Because for most people, there's only one route: is go to your doctor and get some advice, and and a prescription that comes from that. So where does this veer off from the conventional narrative?
there was really, in relation to that part of the story, there was a climatic event, or climatic event that took place, wherein he consulted with the head psychiatrist of the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, Alberta. And so now he's working with one of the top specialists in their field. And, just to sum up the conversation, by the end of it, he was given no hope whatsoever. She actually just finally became very blunt and honest with him, seeing his naivety in the matter. She pulled open the DSM-4 and opened it up to bipolar disorder and read that it was a recurrent disorder. Said, "Mr. Stephan, do you know what that means?" He said, "No, I don't." He says that, or she said that it means that these disorders do not go away, and often in time they get worse. You need to face the reality that your children aren't going to get any better than they are right now on the medications that they're on, that they have the best of medications available to them, and that you may have to, in the future, plan more funerals. And so my father, just, looking at that, came to the realization that literally there was no hope, further hope to be offered in medications. At best, his children were left sedated, which is no quality of life whatsoever. And so it's at that point, and this is by about early 1995 that this has taken place. So just over a year after my mother had taken her own life. And it was at that point that my father realized that there was no known answer for mental illness. But he thought to himself, if there truly is a God above, God knows the answer, and God wouldn't want his children to suffer like this. And so that was really a pinnacle moment in the discovery of Truehope, because at that point in time, he began to spend a lot of time in fasting and prayer, just pleading out of desperation, for some restoration for his family. And it was interesting. Nothing happened overnight, but a miracle did take place when you look at the totality of everything that transpired. Because by about November of 1995, he had already come across a bunch of information in relation to nutrition that had ultimately primed him for what he was going to hear when, as a property manager over 26 large buildings in southern Alberta, he's walking down the hallway one day with one of his colleagues, and they're consulting about replacing carpets. And he felt impressed to tell his colleague about what was going on at home. Now, that's an extremely unprofessional thing to do, especially as the property manager, and you're working merely with a liaison. And to also get personal and just break down. But my father felt impressed to do it, and so he did. And he literally had a meltdown in the hallway, and just basically laid it all out and said that if things didn't change, that my older brother would also have to be institutionalized, like my older sister was having to be institutionalized on a regular basis, because everybody was fearing for their lives. He was homicidal, he was suicidal, he was stockpiling weapons, he was, he would just rage at the drop of a pin. And so my father relayed all this to David Hardy, his colleague, and David Hardy had something interesting to say. He said, Tony, I have a large family like yours, but they're all well, they're fine. I never had to deal with mental illness like that. But he says, we saw something commonplace in the hog pens as I've worked in the animal feed industry for over 20 years, formulating feed for hogs across Western Canada and the Western United States. He says, we saw something commonplace in the hog pens called ear and tail biting syndrome, where the hogs would get extremely irritable with each other. They'd bite chunks of their ears and tails off each other. And if you didn't pen them away from each other, they'd actually kill each other. So we're talking about extreme hyper irritability and homicidal tendencies in pigs, right? He says, we learned something in the animal feed industry that you could completely and simply eradicate this disorder by putting the proper nutrition into their feed. Now, my father had already tried a number of things up to that point. There was, my father was turning over every rock possible. I remember there was magnet therapy coming into the house. Good stuff, right? But it didn't correct my brother Joe. I remember there was Tahitian noni juice, and my brother was having to choke down that stuff. Good stuff. But it didn't correct the mental illness. It didn't correct the bipolar and the homicidal tendencies and all that. But there was all these things coming into the house. There was, I remember seeing the omega-369 and all that type of stuff. And in fact, as a health conscious individual at a young age, I'm the one that ended up consuming it after it didn't work for my brother. And so I can still taste that Tahitian noni juice from over 20 years ago.
Wow.
But anyways, so there was all this stuff taking place, and my father had realized that nothing was working. But in that moment that David Hardy said that, it was like a light bulb flipping on. And my father knew it was the answer, which was a beautiful thing, because what happened right after is they went down to a health food store. They picked up all these different nutrient supplements, vitamins, minerals, amino acids. They put Joe onto it, and it didn't work. It didn't do much at all, if anything. But my father, knowing it was the answer, rather than giving up, persisted. And this is November 1995. Finally, by January 18th of 1996, they received a shipment of 4 different products from the US, and they put Joseph on them. And within 5 days, Joe said it was like a fog lifted, and he could now see what was right and wrong. So here he was shrouded in this mental illness where he didn't even recognize the impact of his actions on those around him. He didn't know the damage that he was creating in relationships. He didn't understand how inappropriate his behaviors were up until that point. Now, all of a sudden, he could see clearly. Within 30 days, he would have no longer received a diagnosis for bipolar disorder. And so it was through that persistence, the confirmation, that spiritual confirmation that it was the answer, then the persistence in seeking out the answer, that restoration began to take place within my own family.
Wow. Okay, so I just want to step back and just summarize that a little bit. So your father is with his colleague walking down the hall, and things at home and things with him are probably at their worst at the moment, because he's just come back from seeking kind of the final advice from the conventional medical system, which is this illness has been classified, it's incurable, nothing you can do about it. And looking back at it now, that's probably the best conversation that he could have had.
Mm-hmm.
He has this open conversation with a colleague, kind of breaks down a little bit or opens up, you may want to call it that, and his friend, his colleague, connects what he's saying and that opens up about pig agriculture and how if their feed is not doesn't have the proper nutrition in, then they act and behave in very different, very violent ways. And then he kind of sees that light bulb moment again, another kind of chance fate conversation, and then you start dabbling in different nutritional products, and then you settle on kind of these 4 products from the US. Can you recall what they were?
Yeah, so there was a multivitamin, and then there was a calcium, magnesium, phosphorus product as well. And that's crucial information moving forward, because what we discovered is balance is absolutely key. And so you have to have the right ingredients, and you have to have them in the right balance. And that was one of the things that set these products apart, is balance was part of the whole formula. And then there was grape seed extract was another one of the ingredients to help facilitate the uptake and assimilation of the vitamins and minerals into the blood brain, or through the blood brain barrier.
Amazing. And then sorry. Yeah. It's please carry on. Yeah. That's obviously, as a nutritionist, we know that supplementation is obviously really important, but getting the right products in the right proportions and making them absorbable is without question the most important thing when it comes to any supplement.
Exactly. You're not what you eat, you are what you absorb, right?
Lovely. Yeah.
And so then the final product, which was really a foundational product, was a colloidal mineral supplement. And so even though there was the multivitamin mineral that was being taken, as well as the calcium, magnesium, phosphorus supplement, and there, so he's getting a wide array of minerals from that, the colloidal mineral supplement was absolutely crucial. Now, up until this point, mineral supplementation had largely been overlooked. And the reason being is that very few manufacturers of nutritional products were doing anything to actually enhance the absorption of these rock form minerals. And so people, when they were taking these supplements, never actually saw the effect that mineral supplementation should have produced. And so up until that point, the science was overlooked. Nobody was recognizing that mineral supplementation was actually the most profound treatment for severe mental health conditions. And the reason being is because we don't absorb rock form minerals. So what was different about these different products, even though they were very similar in nature on the label and everything to the products that had been consumed before by Joe from November up until that point, is that they were, one, they were in a good balance, and two, they had gone through a process that made them bioavailable so that it would actually deliver that nutrition to the brain. The body could actually break it down, assimilate it, get it to cross the intestinal wall, get it to cross cell membranes, get it to cross the blood-brain barrier, basically breaking down every barrier that the body provides to keep foreign substances out. Foreign substances like rock form mineral. You don't get that out of plants. The soil breaks down the minerals. Then the plants can uptake the minerals. They're in organic form. They're bound to organic molecules at that point in time. You eat those plants, and as long as they have adequate levels of those nutrients, you thrive. But due to modern farming methods today, that's not the case. All the food is extremely depleted, and as such, the human populace is extremely depleted in mineral supplementation or mineral content at this point in time. And that's why we're seeing the rise in so many diseases all across the board. So when we take a look at that, those 4 products were put into use. Within a month, my sister got on them. Within 45 days of that time, so this is February of 1996, within 45 days, she gets off of the 5 medications that she'd been on. That was our first experience with how addictive these medications are, causing extreme withdrawal symptoms. She gets off those medications, and within a few months, she's basically up and running, almost full capacity, has her quality of life back, doesn't require 24-hour supervision anymore, never would ever visit a psych ward again, other than maybe to visit a friend there, but never to actually be brought in under, for her own conditions. All of a sudden she's playing the role of mother and wife and doing what she wants to do, and taking on little side projects and a little side business, and she's doing well. And that's when things really started to change in our family, because even though there was 2 of my siblings that had it extremely bad, there was many of us as well that had much lower lying symptoms, but they were still there. But just based on the severity of the symptoms of my older brother and sister, it made the rest of us look like angels in comparison. And so, it just started to spread.
That's just amazing. And obviously, just seeing your siblings go through something like that, you don't necessarily actually have to have a diagnosis or a disorder yourself, but the mental stress that's going to have as a brother is going to be significant. How old were your brother and sister when they started taking these 4 nutritional supplements from the States?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Joseph was 15 at the time, I believe, that he began to take it. So let me just run the math on it. 1996, yeah, 15 at the time, and Autumn would have been, she must have been 23 at the time. I was going to say 22, but if my math serves me correctly, I think it was 23. I think she would have just turned 23 the month previous.
Okay, so 15 in the early 20s. Okay, so they start taking these products and they start to allow both of them to live relatively normal lives, start thinking and feeling and behaving in normal ways, I suppose you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes from 4 nutritional supplements. How do we go from 4 nutritional supplements from the States to what we call EMP Power Plus now?
Yeah, so the production of Empower Plus is kind of an interesting story. and it was never intentional. It was out of necessity. And so if we rewind the clock a little bit here, what happened is with Joe and Autumn, when they got better, we grew up in a small community, and everybody knew, how terrible Joe was. They did. I mean, one of those communities, 3,500 people, everybody knows everybody type thing. Joe's always in and out of the principal's office for violence. He's in, he's on charges, that type of thing with the cops. Just a real troubled child. And all of a sudden he transforms. And it's not just visible in his behavior, it's visible in his very countenance, his demeanor, the way that he carries himself, just the positive energy that he now had with him, that people would want to engage and socialize with him. Whereas before, it's just this really dark energy about him. And so people started asking my father questions saying, "Hey, what have you done with him? He's completely different." And, it was amazing what would come out of the woodwork, the stories people had to tell. When my father would relay what happened, they'd be like, "Well, do you think that would work for my wife with depression, or my son with ADD or ADHD?" And people were, almost everybody had their own personal experience with mental health conditions that they themselves had a vested interest in seeing it corrected. And so what happened is, within the community, it began to spread like wildfire. And my father looked at this and was saying, "Wow, think of all the lives and all the families that could be restored, like our family's been restored. We need to get this into the hands of doctors and get it to become mainstream so that nobody has to go through what we had to go through unnecessarily." And so, in his naivety, he tried to go mainstream with it through the doctors, and it acted as a springboard, because what happened is he ended up meeting with Dr. Brian Kolb out of the University of Lethbridge, who runs the Canadian Center for Behavioral Neuroscience. And he relayed what was taking place with all these people. And Dr. Brian Kolb said, "Well, that's actually beyond me. I don't do human studies. But Dr. Bonnie Kaplan out of the University of Calgary does." And so he put my father and David Hardy in contact with Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. And so they went and attempted to meet with her. She just refused. She says that she had dealt with all the flakes in the 80s regarding nutrition and just didn't have the time to waste. And so what happened is Dr. Brian Kolb said, "Okay, here's what I can do for you. I'm going to supply you the symptom evaluation forms that we typically use in these studies. You can supply them to the people that are going to be taking these supplements. They can fill them out. It's going to be postmarked directly back to me, so you don't get to tamper with it after. And we'll see what comes of it." And so that's what my father and David Hardy began to do, is supply these symptom evaluation forms to people that wanted to try these 4 different products. And what happened was that the numbers were so significant that when Dr. Brian Kolb received them, he forwarded them on to Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. She said, "There's either like some fraud going on here. This is like complete snake oil, or we are actually onto a medical breakthrough." So it warranted her sitting down with my older sister, Autumn, taking a look at her file, right? On black and white, she was supposed to be a severe mental health patient that should be in the psych ward and should not be left alone with a 3-year-old, well, at the time, probably a 4-year-old son. And so when she was able to observe Autumn and see that she wasn't at all in person who she was made out to be in black and white, and she also interviewed my father and David Hardy, she realized that there was probably something here. So what happened is, she began to study the 4 different products and saw the same results that we were seeing within the community. But then something happened midway throughout the study, when all of a sudden people began to revert back to where they were before. And it wasn't just happening within the study, it was also happening in the community with everybody who had come to rely on these 4 products. So the University of Calgary ended up doing an analysis on the 4 different products. And what they found is that the colloidal mineral supplement, that the levels of minerals in there varied depending upon the batch. So you can't study a variable, right? Because you're going to get variable results.
Yeah.
So the study was shut down. We were left looking for a replacement product that would produce the same results that the initial batch produced, and we couldn't find anything that was really reliable. And so what ended up coming out of it, after a tremendous amount of prayer and fasting and researching, was the Empower Plus formulation that we have now today in the much smaller bottle than it originally came in. The original bottle would have been double the size, double the height, basically, and about double the width. It was a very, very large bottle. with over 400 capsules per bottle. And the reason
Wow.
for that is because the amount that you had to take was copious. However, it produced the results we were looking for. And so people were willing to do it just to get their lives back or to achieve a quality of life that they had never, ever been able to experience in this life. And so that's how that came about, was out of necessity. Never ever was there an intention of making this into a business. My father was still a property manager at the time, running a large operation there, and was had a good life. But yet, out of necessity, they had to produce their own product to ensure that our families had the supplements that we needed to ensure that we didn't revert back into the depths of mental illness, and that the people who had come to rely on them had the same benefit as well.
Incredible. That's just wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like your father's gone through so many different experiences that, looking back now, were essential to what we now know as Empower Plus and True Hope Canada. Your father's gone from this property manager to running this wonderful company, totally born out of seeing in his own community and in his own family how wonderful and incredible the right nutritional supplements can be towards people suffering not only from significant pathologies but also stress, anxieties, a lot of things that people experience on a day-to-day basis that might not be described as clinical, but I think we can all relate to, especially now in the early months of 2021, how anxious and stressful the whole world is. So right now in the story, we got to the point where True Hope Canada and True Hope is kind of born out of the requirement, because the whole community and the people doing the studies, which is obviously incredibly important for validation, unable to get the batches that are producing the results. So you kind of formulate your own product. How many versions of Empower Plus have there been to date?
Well, in a pure sense, one.
Okay.
The formula is still the same as it's always been, the same 36 ingredients. However, the enhancements that we've made in the production methods that we apply, there's been numerous revisions. So in 1998, for somebody with mental health, severe mental health conditions, acute mental health conditions, they'd have to take up to 48 capsules per day to have a radical transformation in their life where that they were no longer plagued by that mental health condition. But then that started in 1998. In 2000, what we did is we changed the chelation technology. So the chelating agents, the organic molecules that are being attached to the minerals to promote absorption through the intestinal wall and into the system, into your body, that was changed. And just by doing that alone, with the same formula, same ingredients, same ratio, same balance, all that type of stuff, we were able to get down to 32 capsules per day. Then what happened in 2001, we began to micronize those minerals. And what's interesting is in the soil, there's natural processes that take place when everything is within synergy, when everything's in balance and the soil is just teeming with life. You have these breakdowns of breakdown process of the minerals, whether it be through earthworms or various worms. Some people are aware of worm castings, where the worms will actually go and they'll grind up the soil and basically micronize it, making it into plant food. And so that's a natural process that takes place in healthy soil. There's also different bacteria cultures that'll help break down, as well as chelate the minerals within the soil so that the plants can uptake them. So what we began to do was replicate that same model in a laboratory setting, where now we're binding it to organic molecules, but now we're also micronizing it like what you'd find it within healthy soil. And so we're reducing the particle size, and we understand in nutrition, when you reduce the particle size, you increase the absorption. And so when we did that in 2001, by doing that alone, we ended up going from 32 capsules a day down to 18 capsules a day. Significant improvement, same formula, but producing the same results with less than half of what was required 3 years previous. But then that wasn't good enough for us. We continued to move forward. In 2005, we actually developed our own chelation technology that was completely proprietary. Nobody else was doing anything like what we were doing to mineral supplementation at the time. And we were able to get it down. It was marginal at the time, but we got it down to 15 capsules per day. But it was still a step in the right direction. And remember, there's 36 ingredients in each one of these capsules. So you're not getting a huge amount of each one of those ingredients. So imagine taking 36 different ingredients separately. You're going to be taking 36 different tablets or capsules throughout a day. So you got to keep that in context there. That it's you're not taking mega doses of vitamins. You're just
Sure.
taking a lot of vitamins in the capsules, and you're just taking a lot of the capsules. But then what happened was, um, in 2013, we further improved that chelation technology and got it so that we could supply. It was about 6 to 9 capsules per day would achieve the same results as what those 15 caps per day did. And then in the past 2 years, we've really gone out on a limb and refined that process to a significant degree, where we're almost to the point that we're going to have to reformulate just based on the vitamin to mineral ratio, because the minerals are so incredibly powerful now that we can take 4 to 6 capsules per day today, and it will produce the same results with the same formula as what 48 capsules back in 1998 would have produced. So we're talking, significantly less is what needs to be taken, like 1/7 of the amount, and yet we're producing the exact same results. And so, same formula, just multiple enhancements to how absorbable that formula is within the body.
Remarkable. So over the last 23 years, the the processing behind the scenes is the technology there has advanced so much that you're able to make them more absorbable and more absorbable and more absorbable, so that people are able to uptake the required nutrition and the ingredients, the very deliberate balanced ingredients, so that people are able to get this into their body working for them as quickly as possible, really. And then we see people in testimonials experience that they have a significant change in their mental function within days.
Mhm. Yeah, and what people need to remember too is, when we take a look at the original formula back in 1998, by today's standards, that's a high quality product. If we were to put that on the health food store shelf today, it's a comprehensive blend of 36 ingredients in the proper balance, and it's been chelated. People wouldn't generally ask for more than that. That still is well above many of the benchmark of what makes a good multivitamin today, and yet we've taken that was already good back then, and we've gone that much further with it. And it's no wonder. I mean, some people look at our product, they'll look at the label and they'll say, there's no way that this product does what you claim it does, even though we have 35 medical journal publications that attest to it. But they say there's no way it'll do that. But that's based on the limited knowledge that they have of the power of minerals in conjunction with vitamins, and what they can do in proper synergy when it's put into an extremely bioavailable format. And so we're really redefining the application of what a multivitamin mineral can do in relation to your overall health and well-being, especially when it comes to acute mental health conditions.
Yeah, just phenomenal stuff. And I'd love to move forward with the story, but just to comment one thing. Back when your father had this experience with a doctor saying that there's nothing that he could possibly do for his children, his family, was that in the conventional playbook, there was literally no answers, because this type of thing had not even been fathomed or thought about and studied. So, in the conventional system, yeah, there was a open and shut case. So your father is this inventor, this innovator, this incredibly, to come up with something so wonderful out of something so tragic is it's another True Hope miracle. And it's just absolutely wonderful. I think a lot of people are familiar with the controversy wrapped around True Hope and Health Canada. Kind of a good time to bring this up in regards to the story. Can you tell us about that? Because yeah, if anyone was to Google True Hope or Empower Plus, probably a bunch of this stuff's going to come up. Um, whether that's based on search engine optimization or whatever, but the Health Canada True Hope thing is really, really important. It's a really important part of the story because a lot of people who don't know this, True Hope has been an advocate for natural health for a long, long time, and without this type of thing happening, a lot of the rights and things that we do have as a natural option uh, in Canada aren't available to us without people fighting the system. So, can you tell us a little bit about True Hope and the Health Canada controversy, please?
Absolutely. And you're bang on. Every Canadian that enjoys the right to access to natural health supplements is a benefactor of Health Canada's actions when they came against us and they ended up losing. And I'll get into that in just a brief moment. But just to clear one thing up, if my father was standing here and giving the answer in relation to or responding to being an inventor or anything like that, I think he would always defer back to merely being inspired, that really the creator is the one who set nature in balance initially, and man in his infinite wisdom took it out of balance, and we now suffer the consequences for it. It was really a result of being inspired by the creator of the heavens and the earth. Really is what it comes down to. And so but yeah, to move forward, it's actually kind of an exciting part of the story, because you think that when a discovery like this is made and people are seeing tremendous benefits and doing so at a significantly reduced cost compared to the cost of pharmaceutical medications and healthcare costs, you think that there would be a rally cry around it and saying, we need to look into this further. Let's get this into the healthcare system. Let's reduce the cost of the healthcare system. Let's improve the quality of people's lives. Let's get people back to going, to work, or, going to school, or pursuing their dreams in whatever fashion they see fit. You think that there would be this excitement around it. And we thought that there would be too. However, what happened is once Empower Plus was produced and it was brought back to Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, she took and did a small study of 10 bipolar patients on the supplement. And it seems like a small number, but when you see the significant improvements, it's one of those things that you just look at it and say, well, the effect size is so grand in all of the individuals that there's definitely something to this, even though it was 10 bipolar patients, when basically every one of them is having a radical life transformation. You're going to say there's something to this. Let's study it more. So what happens is in October of 2000, she performs this study, becomes so excited about the preliminary results, publishes them before the study's even fully completed, because things have gone so positive with it. It generates a lot of attention, like it should have. It goes on to CTV National News, where they did a very positive article about us in October of 2000. And literally the very next day after it went across Canada, Health Canada phones my father and says, do you know that you're in contravention of Section 3132 of the Food and Drugs Act? In order to help somebody with bipolar disorder, you require a drug identification number, even though it's a multivitamin. It needs to be classified as a drug because of the application of it. So my father says, okay, well, sure, sign me up. How do I get one, right? He attempts to work with Health Canada. He does everything in his power to try to appease them, only to realize that they have an agenda and they refuse to give him one. And so at one point, they even said, Mr. Stephan, if you want to continue helping people the way that you're doing here, although I don't think they use the words help people, but if you want to continue doing what you're doing here, because they refuse to acknowledge that it was helping people, perhaps you want to move south of the border, as if Canadians didn't deserve a Canadian discovery that could, improve their lives to a very great degree. So then what comes into question is, what's Health Canada's role? Are they actually looking out for the health of Canadians? Or are they deterring people from achieving health, right? Because in this case, that's exactly what they were doing. And so my father came to this realization that they had an absolute agenda to shut him down. And so he just said, okay, I don't need the permission of some bureaucrat in Ottawa to tell me whether or not I can bless somebody else like my family's been blessed. And so he just outright ignored him. He just outright disobeyed him. And so Health Canada, as you can yes, didn't like that. And so what ended up happening is this persisted for a few years where they were constantly giving my father cease and desist orders. You know, you need to shut down, you know, you're going to get yourself in trouble, this, that. And my father just, okay, whatever, file that, file that, file that, ignore it. I'm going to continue to move forward with this godly mission. And so we did. And then it all came to a climax when in early 2003, Health Canada knew that they were going to create a crisis by shutting it off at the border because it was being produced in the States at the time. And so they set up a 1-800 crisis line in anticipation of all the calls that they were going to have to field. And then they shut it off at the border, and literally they were receiving thousands of phone calls from desperate people saying, we need our supplements back. Our very lives depend on it. Health Canada's own documentation showed that they knew it was going to put Canadians in harm's way, but they did it anyways. Once again, whose health were they looking out for? The health of Canadians or the bottom line profits of the pharmaceutical industry that we were competing with as we were helping people come off pharmaceutical medications because they no longer required them. In fact, they would become over medicated if they tried to stay on their antidepressants or antipsychotics while taking the Empower Plus. And so Health Canada showed its true colors and who they were working for, and it was not the people of Canada. It was big corporate interests. So then what happened is we did a protest in front of the Federal Minister of Health's office in Edmonton, Alberta, and literally within a few days of that, there was what we figure is retaliation. A gun-drawn raid from an RCMP SWAT team at our head office in little small town Raymond, Alberta. They came and they shut us down for a few days as they performed a complete raid with a search warrant. Not one thing listed on the search warrant was found because it was all false allegations that Health Canada had levied against us. And it appeared to be nothing more than a scare tactic to say, go away. Well, we weren't willing to go away. And neither were the 3,000 Canadians who absolutely relied on it. And so finally, by the end of 2003, Health Canada came under so much pressure and there were so many negative news articles on them in relation to what they were doing to the Canadian public that they finally gave in and let the product back across the border. But then in early 2004, they came in and charged my father and David Hardy. And then in 2005, they end up in court over the matter. And finally, by mid 2006, a decision was rendered that was a not guilty. It was a full acquittal. And not only was it an acquittal, there was a mandate given by the judge who said that my father and David Hardy had no choice but to disobey Health Canada. And if they had obeyed Health Canada, that they could find themselves under or in the courts again, but this time for criminal charges under Section 217 of the Criminal Code of Canada for engaging in criminal negligence by creating bodily harm. Because Health Canada displayed exactly what would happen if you prevent access to these products to people that need them, and that literally, in many instances, they are life-saving products. And unfortunately, it was testified to within the courts that Health Canada knew what they were doing, and as a result of their actions, they actually caused multiple suicides, testified in court. And so it was though it came out of great tragedy and unfortunately at the cost of Canadians' lives, on the blood on the hands of Health Canada, there was a beautiful thing that came out of it, because that was a precedent that was established that prevented Health Canada from being able to come in to other natural health companies, which they were doing at the time, and to just take their products off the shelves with no scientific evidence of harm being produced by them, and just removing these therapeutic products. And they were doing it left, right, and center prior to that court case. And all of a sudden, now there was a legal precedent that prevented Health Canada from absolutely gutting the natural health industry.
Wow, I don't know where to comment from there, but that was, yeah, it's quite remarkable, especially when Health Canada is aware of how positive this product is and how many people it's helping. What was the timeline between people being blocked of access to these products and then being allowed open again?
It was about 6 months, and during that time, what was interesting is many law-abiding citizens became criminals as they started up smuggling rings. We were made aware that there was natives out of Ontario that were being employed to go and across the river and pick the stuff up and then bring it back across the river.
Unbelievable.
We were aware of grandmothers driving across the border to pick it up for their grandchildren, and smuggling it across the border, not declaring it. So putting themselves in harm's way in a sense, but out of necessity. So it really, within that 6-month period, it really changed a lot of people's perception on the role of government and what they were actually doing in relation to the well-being of Canadians.
Absolutely. When you look at the behaviors of Health Canada, and as you said, more like acting as police officers for the pharmaceutical industry, because obviously a bipolar disorder or a schizophrenia disorder or many of the other mental health illnesses out there, the prescription of multiple pharmaceutical drugs come from that, and they're in the conventional direction. It's lifelong, as you say. Even still, if you go to a doctor's office, the playbook is still very, very similar, and that can make a lot of money of somebody who's on these pharmaceutical medications, multiple at the same time. That's big. It's big business, no question about that. And then if you're able to manufacture a supplement and make that available, that's actually preventing and curing a lot of people, that's very, very different than the completely blocking the profits being made from pharmaceutical industry, who are making so much money off sick people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's wild in regards to that, and it's such a big win for everyone in Canada who does enjoy the right to go to their natural health food store, speak to someone in the supplement section, and whether it's a Truehope product or something else, there's so many people who are and should be incredibly thankful for everything that your father and your family went through, because I can imagine that there are so many opportunities and so many times where your dad got a phone call or a threat, and coming to small town and opening up with a SWAT team, and it's a play of threat. There's no doubt about that. And we hear it's not the only example of that, especially in North America where that's happened to. Whether that's a supplement company or a doctor who's doing something off the conventional narrative. So yeah, it's remarkable, and again, some wonderful things that are coming from Truehope throughout this story. Let's touch on Empower Plus itself a little bit. So what makes it, and we talked about the chelation and the processing behind it, what makes it different from other multivitamins?
All right. Yeah. So basically, if you were to boil it down to two main points, it's balance and bioavailability. But how we start the whole thing out is, or how it was started out back in 1998, was taking the right combination of these 36 different vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants, and combining them in a way that they actually work together, and making sure that you had the right form. Because sometimes when you add one form of a mineral, it'll react a certain way with this vitamin. And so that was the first thing, was basically drafting the team, bringing the proper team of nutrients together, that they would actually work together, not cancel each other out. That was the first thing. Then it was making sure that the minerals were in the proper balance. So, I discussed earlier about the calcium, magnesium, phosphorus supplement that was initially taken as the 4-product regimen that Joe was on. And that's one thing that has to be in proper balance when we're talking about those bone building minerals, is the calcium, the magnesium, and the phosphorus. What they discovered in agriculture is that if you supplement with calcium alone, you can actually create far more harm than you do good by offsetting that balance in the body. You may increase the bone density, but the actual structural integrity of those bones is lessened. It's more of a crystalline type structure that is more brittle and more susceptible to breakage. And so actually Dr. Levy talks about this death by calcium, and he's bang on. He's absolutely right. But unfortunately, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Calcium is an essential mineral. It's not that calcium itself is bad. It's that the form of calcium is bad. It's that the application of the calcium is bad. It has to be in the proper balance with the magnesium and phosphorus for it to work appropriately. And we recognize that right from the beginning, with the knowledge that David Hardy brought from the agricultural industry. And so that was one thing that was applied right off the bat. The second thing is, if we're taking a look at mineral balance, a very crucial balance is the copper and the zinc. If you take zinc on its own, and I've seen this many times in practice, people come to me and they'll talk about the anxiety issues that they have, and then they confide in me with all the different supplements they're taking, and quite often zinc is one of the supplements they're taking. Now, there's nothing wrong with zinc, but it has to be kept in the proper proportion with copper. Otherwise, you actually create anxiety disorders, or it can even get to the point of psychosis. And so, when we take a look at that, we really put a focus on the balance of those ingredients. But now at the end of the day, you can have the right combination, the best team possible of supplements coming together, and then you can also have it in the right balance, but it still won't do you any good if it's not bioavailable. And so that's where we then really go to great lengths in our manufacturing practices that we've developed on our own, to make sure that those minerals are extremely micronized, and that they're bound to organic molecules. So the same way that you'd be getting out of your food, the same thing that soil would be doing under ideal conditions if it wasn't being sprayed with glyphosate, which sterilizes everything. Um, we basically mimic what nature would be doing had we not been tampering with her. And as a result, we see an extremely potent product that has extreme therapeutic effects, without having to take copious amounts of it. And the label just looks like a standard multivitamin, but yet it's setting the benchmark for what multivitamins should be doing.
So we've spoken about some quite significant mental health disorders, but I personally take Empower Plus, and I know a lot of people that do. But these are people who don't have a diagnosis. They don't have a significant condition. So who really can benefit from this product?
Well, quite simply, anybody who requires nutrition to function on a daily basis. The whole population. Many times we have people coming to us, and we've got our niche market, and that's addressing the greatest need. The people that are most proactive and desperate are those that are literally suffering and on death's doorstep because they're contemplating suicide, or admitting themselves into the psych ward or whatnot, or losing their family, or watching their relationships just deteriorate around them. Those are people that are generally looking for help, not always, but generally. And so we cater to them many times, and that's really our niche market. But however, what we've seen over the years is somebody who comes to us and they're already relatively healthy and have what we'd call a normal mood balance, where they have normal low days, normal high days, ups and downs, but nothing that would be diagnosed as bipolar disorder. What we see is when they jump on the supplement, they become much more level, more happy, more calm and collect, able to deal with stress at a significantly better level than they were before. They just don't react to the situations that they would have back in the past, and they just seem to have a greater level of cognition overall. So if they're engaged in studies, college or just general school, their grades they'll generally see them improve. It's a very common theme that we are seeing over and over and over again. We're seeing actually children that are failing school and rapidly transitioning into being A students. That's not uncommon for us to see that. And so everybody who requires nutrition could see a benefit from it. It's just the worse off you are if you're contemplating suicide, and that's a reality in your life. You're going to see a far greater benefit from it than somebody who's already relatively healthy, and it still brings them up to a higher level. It's just that when you're in the depths of despair, and all of a sudden now you're seeing the light and you're enjoying life, that's an undeniable life transformation that everyone around you can observe themselves.
How do you see the application of Empower Plus in 2021, considering the crazy year we've just had, and how we've seen, especially in Canada, we've seen significant more deaths and tragedy from suicide than we've actually seen COVID deaths. So how would you place those two together?
We're really becoming the ambulance at the bottom of the hill again. where we were taking a proactive approach for many years, getting into the health food stores and trying to get people before they ever got to that place in their lives. Um, just allowing them to make that choice to shore themselves up and have that mental clarity and stability before they ever found themselves in the depths of despair. But now with what's taken place with COVID is we're seeing the deaths of despair are rapidly increasing, whether it be due to overdoses, suicide, even cardiovascular related diseases that are being that the onset is this increased stress. We're seeing all of that. And so now really that's where we're going to be shifting our focus, is being that ambulance at the bottom of the hill, as people are literally crashing around us, and hopefully we have the opportunity to get the message out there and to be a blessing to them, to provide them with another option that they don't need to succumb to the despair around us. They don't need to succumb to these stresses, to the financial issues that are all around us, where people have put their hope and trust in their career or their schooling, and all of a sudden they don't see that as a reality anymore because of the ever rapidly changing environment. So that's really what I see 2021 being, is just trying to prevent people from completely succumbing to the despair.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the research. So, what science and research has been done on Empower Plus and its use in mental health conditions? Because as a nutritionist, when I studied supplements and supplement companies, and being practicing for nearly 5 years now, you get approached by a lot of supplement companies who want you to become an ambassador or an associate or something. Just want them to, they want you to just sell their products. The first thing I always do is go to their website and look at their science. It's the first thing I always do, and 9 times out of 10 they don't have any. So what's the difference between, we've got Empower Plus and Truehope. What's the difference between this company and their research in comparison to others?
Well, my father and David Hardy always had it in their mind to have it scientifically validated. I mean, there was so much anecdotal evidence, as a whole community is starting to really jump on board with it and see the blessing of it. To the disdain of the doctors who are involved in the community, right? Of course. But anyways, so they always wanted to get it studied so that it could go mainstream. They always had it in their mind that it would somehow work its way into mainstream medicine. And unfortunately, that never took place, and that's fine. We'll just continue to move forward with the mission as we can, in our own abilities. But as a part of that, what took place is that some researchers got on board and began to study it, like Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. And when she saw those phenomenal results, she kind of took on a personal mission, and started to share it with other researchers, other colleagues, and it started to spread amongst the scientific community, to the point where there were studies taking place all across the world on this supplement, all independent. We didn't have the money to fund any studies, nor would we, because it would compromise the integrity of it. But even if we did have the money, we would, but we wouldn't have had the money anyways, because we were busy putting it all into a legal fund, fighting Health Canada, just to maintain any sense of existence at all. And so what happened behind the scenes was these researchers were finding out about it and were beginning to study it on their own accord. And so now today there's over 24 completely independent studies from universities all across the world, on a wide array of mental health conditions, and it's resulted in 35 medical journal publications, in prestigious medical journals, very highly credible medical journals. And those medical journal publications have been on topics such as, ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, autism, ODD, OCD. So many of these studies were actually done on children. And that's one of the questions that people will ask many times. Is it safe and effective for children? Well, yes, it is. Children eat the same food that you as an adult eat. So they also require nutrition like you as an adult require, right? And so many of the studies were actually done on childhood disorders. But then they branched out even further. So bipolar is obviously where it all began. But then they went into psychoses. They went into studies on major depressive disorder. They studied just general anxiety, which many people suffer with, uh, PTSD, which is a very important one. There's so many people that suffer with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they don't even know they are, right? They don't even know why they react the way they do to certain situations, but it's because they have these trigger points that go back to their childhood. And it helps people out with that. It helps pull you out of that situation where you can now objectively analyze what's going on in your life and be able to kind of rewire your brain circuitry so that you don't just flip on a dime type thing when something triggers and brings you back to a past experience. Um, but then there's also where it went into traumatic brain injury, and this is an extremely important one because so many, especially males who have involved themselves in different team sports, have suffered traumatic brain injury and are now suffering the emotional ability because of it. And so most people never fully heal from things like concussions. There's residual effects and it changes people. And many people, many family members of people that have had concussions will attest to that. That their brother had a brain injury, had a traumatic brain injury, and or a concussion, and all of a sudden they're just not quite the same that they were before. And so we've seen where studies have taken place on that, and complete recovery, which is such a beautiful thing. It just shows that there's hope that even if brain material is damaged, that it can be rejuvenated. And there's actually a rat brain study that was done on the Empower Plus that fully attests to this. And this is really quite a fantastic study that took place where they took 120 2 to 4 day old rats, and they induced a stroke in the rats by opening up the brain cavity and removing a large portion of the frontal lobe of the brain, or by punching holes in the parietal lobes of the brain. And what they discovered after 90 days, they put them through all sorts of different cognitive testing and found that cognitively, the rats that were on the Empower Plus that had these significant brain injuries, they were outperforming the control rats that never had a brain injury after 90 days. So they were actually they were functioning on a higher level than a typical rat would be expected to function at, even though 90 days before they had just had their lives radically uh, damaged, in a sense, by having the brains, literally chunks of brains removed from them, right? And so what they then did is they opened up the rats after they terminated them, unfortunately. But then when they examined the brains, what they found is that there was a full regrowth, a full physical regrowth. It wasn't just like many people will learn it in nutrition schooling, holistic, when you're training to be a holistic nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor. You'll learn that the brain has a phenomenal way of rewiring the pathways around the damaged area. This showed that when you change the environment within the brain with the proper nutrition, that it goes beyond that, and it doesn't just rewire the pathways around the damaged area, it fully corrects the damaged area. And so all you could see with the rats that had the frontal lobe largely removed, you couldn't see any evidence of any damage ever taking place. With the parietal lobes, all you saw was minuscule amount of scar tissue where the holes had once been. But like I said, at the end of the day, the rats were outperforming the regular rats that weren't on the Empower Plus, even though they'd had that significant brain damage. And so they then went further and they looked at the neurons. And an indicator of a highly functioning neuron is how complexly branched and how long the dendrites are. The little branches that send and receive messages. So the more of them there is, and the longer they are, the better they're able to communicate. And what they found without fail is that the rats that were on the Empower Plus, the dendrites had significantly more dendrites on each neuron, and they were longer, more complexly branched. And so right down to the very root of it, when you boil it right down as far as you can, basically, all indications showed that these rats had a very, very highly functioning brain, even though it had been significantly damaged at one point in time. And now there's been human studies that attest to that, showing that even in your older years, when you wouldn't anticipate that much healing will take place, if you change the environment with the nutrients that you put into your body has a phenomenal ability to create healing that it otherwise wouldn't create.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And through the study of neuroplasticity, the body being able to completely rewire and completely heal and go beyond that. Um, so many people don't get the proper nutrition, but once you give your body what it needs, those ingredients, those vital, pivotal ingredients in the right balance and formulation, your body's going to work wonders, and it's going to take you way beyond what you've ever experienced, and you will literally think, feel, and behave in a different way because you've got a different brain that's functioning in a much more optimal way. In regards to all of the science that we have for Empower Plus, you can access all of that through our website, and it's actually categorized by um, disorder. So you can actually go there and look up ADHD or depression or anxiety or brain concussion, and all those studies that are related to those conditions you will be able to check out and look, because it's obviously very important that we're sharing and showing the science that is backing up these incredible testimonials and incredible results that we're seeing from this product. Just to shift to another wonderful element of Truehope, can you tell us a little bit more about Truehope's micronutrient support services?
Absolutely. So what we discovered in the late 90s was that when people were trying to come off medications, many of them were absolutely struggling with the withdrawal effects of them. And that was a huge point of failure for many people. They just couldn't get past that point, as well as many people who wanted to stay on the medications. So there had to be specific protocols for them taking the Empower Plus so that they didn't become over medicated and actually begin to experience all the negative side effects from those medications, which in many regards are worse than the illness itself. And so we, over time, developed a support program to help people come off these medications safely and effectively, or to maintain on the medications if they didn't feel comfortable coming off them, and to understand how much Empower Plus they could take in those instances and at what times of the day. And so we developed over this time this micronutrient support services that we now offer today. We really see it as a duty because, a lot of the people that are coming to us are medicated and they just didn't know where to turn first. So they went to the doctor, got on these medications. They've been on them for a few weeks, few months, few years, maybe a few dozen years. We've had that. And now that they learn that there's an alternative that will actually give positive side effects versus negative side effects, that, yeah, it may correct the mental health condition, but it's going to go beyond that too. It's going to increase overall energy and immunity, and everything in the body's going to start functioning better as all of a sudden it's getting all nutrited. And so then they decide that they want to jump on it, and they need assistance in coming off those medications. And so we see it as a duty to provide that service to people. And so today we still do that, and we've done that for now just about 24 years. We've been providing that service, but now we do it a little bit differently. It used to be built into the cost of the product, so whether you were using the support services or not, you were paying for it. And so now today we've shifted that up a bit. And in an effort to supply our products at a lesser cost to the average individual out there through the retail outlets, through the health food stores and naturopathic doctors and different alternative practitioners here in Canada, we don't incorporate the cost in there. But what we do is we do basically a cost recovery on the program. It's not, we have support staff who work 5 days out of the week, and when you purchase the support, you're now qualified for basically unlimited phone support to phone in. And so if we have a severe situation with somebody who's going through extreme withdrawals from the medications, and they need a little more assistance than normal, then we're able to help them even on a daily basis. And that comes at just a simple cost of $35 per month, which doesn't even come close to covering the full cost of the support, but it's a kind of a cost recovery program that we have. So for those who are interested in that, need assistance coming off medications, for just an additional $35 per month, they can get that support. And generally they'll only need it for a few months, and then they no longer need it. And so it's just a temporary cost to help them get through that time of life, and they have all the assistance that they need to get through that time.
Remarkable, yeah, and you can go to our website and actually read a little bit more about that and get connected if you're interested. But yeah, such an incredible service to offer anybody who's going through something significant. And we would always advocate that you work with a professional, as a health professional, when it comes to our products and medications, because more often than not, if somebody is looking to get off their psychiatric medications, there's not a whole lot of support you're going to get in a doctor's office. So as you say, it's so important that you're going through that type of a transition or a change with someone incredibly qualified to do so, and the people in our micronutrient support service are that. Um, just coming towards the end, I think, just to kind of wind this down, I'd love to get a little bit more personal in regards to you and your product use. So, what has been your big takeaway from being exposed to True Hope EMP and its development and evolution, starting from your father's kitchen? How has this affected your choices as an adult and as a parent?
Significantly. It's absolutely created a lifestyle that's a fair bit different, or not a fair bit different, I guess, but different than mainstream North American lifestyle when it comes to diet, when it comes to supplementation and all that. But also, we see the fruits of that. So many years ago, right before I was married, I was living the standard American lifestyle, eating what I wanted to eat. And I always told myself, you know what, as long as I take my supplements, I'll be just fine. And I wasn't. It definitely kept my mental clarity about me, but my body began to suffer the consequences of not living the way that I should. And so what happened over time is, and many people think that supplements are an absolute replacement of proper diet, and they're not. They work synergistically. When you have a proper diet, you're going to nourish the gut flora. You're going to have, better absorption and digestion, which is also going to maximize the effect of the supplements that you're taking. And so it's important to provide synergy there. Eat healthy, supplement healthy, and you'll thrive, right? If you eat garbage, you're going to feel like garbage, and eventually you'll start to look like garbage. And I was there.
Yeah.
I was there, right? I was a good almost 50 pounds heavier than I am today, even though I worked my backside off. But I just couldn't lose the weight, and I was, anyways, I just wasn't doing well. So today, we take, all the supplements you see to the side of me, we take every one of them. So basically, as a parent, the first thing that I do for myself in the morning, I generally wake up before everybody else in the home. I'll go to the cupboard and I'll grab the iodine, and I'll take that first thing in the morning. That perks me up. It kickstarts the metabolism. I feel good, and then from there, shortly after about breakfast time, we'll have a small breakfast. We'll start taking the supplements, and the children will have them as well. So that includes the Empower Plus, that includes the free aminos, which is a free form amino acid, which is 23 free form amino acids in the proper balance, balanced after human breast milk. It's not human breast milk, but it's balanced after human breast milk. And then added to that is 7 vitamins that help with the assimilation of those amino acids into the body. So we'll take that as well, so that we're getting a kickstart there. We have amino acids, which are broke down proteins. We have vitamins and minerals. And then we also add to the regimen, the regimen, not regiment, the regimen. We add to that an omega fatty acid that we don't supply. And the reason that we don't supply one is because there isn't a void in the marketplace to fill there. And if we're not going to supply something that's going to be extremely beneficial, that's going to fill a void in the marketplace, we're just not interested in it. We don't want to flood the marketplace with products, Me Too products. If we can supply something that's exclusive that people won't find elsewhere, we're going to do it. And that's what we do with each one of our products. They're all life-changing products. But so we go and we purchase other omega fatty acids, and we consume those, because that provides the foundation of nutrition. We have our vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and omega fatty acids. Those are all the essential nutrients that you need. And then as long as you're getting a healthy caloric intake, whether it be through fats or carbs, you're fine. And then obviously adequate protein consumption, but the amino acids themselves help supplement for that. So that's how we kind of start off the day. But then, when we go to settle down for at night, we'll take some of the bone building product. And the reason for that is it also helps you get into a deep sleep. The calcium and magnesium in there really facilitate that deep sleep so that you just have a much more restful night. So we'll take that as well. We'll take inositol, which is another one of our products. When the kids are rambunctious and all riled up, we'll give them some inositol, which is a natural calming supplement. And so it's just, we just incorporate all of it in such a way that it creates a profound difference in the home where the children are far healthier. They rarely get sick, and I mean rarely. And when they do, it's subtle. It helps promote or helps prevent major stress issues. Many people will understand the background or the backstory of my own personal life and what my wife and I and our family have had to go through. And because it was displayed internationally in the news. And, that was an intensely stressful situation, not just financially, emotionally, having to relive the loss of our son, the tragic loss of our son that was largely covered up. There was a big backstory there and a cover up that took place to try to criminalize my wife and I. And when we take a look at that and how stressful it was, nutrients played no small role in relation to helping us keep our heads up and get through what would normally be a completely devastating, debilitating event that would have made most people completely shut down.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I take the majority of the products myself as well, and I see them. They actually make me more. Not only do they look awesome on the shelf right there, but they're very bright, they're very vibrant, and I see them. They make me very conscious of myself and how I'm feeling. So if I'm taking these products, like it allows me to check in with how I'm doing, and then there's as you say, like these different products do so many wonderful things, and yeah, it just allows me to just really check in a little bit on how I'm doing and making sure that I'm giving my body the right things it needs to get through different times, because yeah, there's the stresses will pop up. They're inevitable in life, but we do have these incredible natural products that can really help us through the most intense, crazy situations. And I'm personally really thankful that Truehope's come into my life, and I have them at my disposal, because it's really made me a lot more aware of how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and how I can actually rectify that using natural medicine. Um, David, amazing. We're totally gonna have to jump back on and talk about in more detail the other products and so many other different things. I just wanted to mention we spoke about Dr. Bonnie Kaplan and the amazing work that she's done. And the beginning, she was really hesitant in regards to jumping and getting involved in another quacky nutrition guy. And we're actually having her on next week, so you should definitely make sure you check in and listen to that one, because it's going to be really fantastic to listen to somebody who's actually done the research with our products and with so many different people who have reaped the benefits. Such an important part of the whole process is getting that research, that science done, validated, and like it might be quite a tricky thing to get a scientist really excited about something nutritional, I think. But thank you so much for joining us today, David. How can people connect with you?
Mainly over Facebook is where I do a lot of my stuff. Just basically searching my name, and you'll find me. I look the same in my profile picture as I do today. And I do a little bit of stuff, not as much as I should, on a number of channels. The Stand number 4 and then Truth. So Stand for Truth. I do have the standfortruth.ca URL, but I haven't done a whole lot with it, but I will be in the near future probably, as well as the same with the YouTube channel and Facebook channel or page as well. But right now, most of my stuff that I do is over my personal page on Facebook.
Amazing. And yeah, for any information on anything that we've spoken about and links to connect with David will be in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. But again, David, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I learned a whole lot. I mean, I know a lot about Truehope, but now I really know. But That's great. That's it. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. This is True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.